Hi everyone, I'm Sarthak Jain, a senior software engineer at Harness and also a maintainer of Litmus Chaos. We are at KubeCon London and we have with us Lior who will be sharing his insights on AI in chaos engineering. So let's get started. Right? So chaos engineering has evolved significantly in recent years. In your view, how is AI enhancing this field?
Yes, I think AI definitely come to enhance the field. People were initially intimidating to adopt chaos engineering. Some of it is lack of knowledge, how to test, how to validate. Some of it is how to remediate, right? Sometimes we're doing chaos engineering, but it's not really safe. There's also some places where chaos engineering, went into like test environments or dev environments, but it didn't really ever graduate in production. So I think AI is here to we can use AI to suggest us all the cases, how to design experiments efficiently, and then fast forward we can see more and more cases coming to production if we are to use and leverage AI correctly. Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. Also in chaos engineering, decision making around experiment design and failure hypothesis can be challenging. So how do you see AI improving decision making process, particularly in terms of identifying the most critical areas to test and improve?
Right. So, we have the models are trained on a lot of, internet data, scraping, whatever. And I mean, the models can be used to actually to basically leverage prior knowledge, prior failures, basically the most crucial points that we actually need to test. So AI models can give us, if we train them correctly, can give us all this information, and subsequently it can suggest, okay, this is the priority list that you should basically test. You should basically evaluate. For example, the things we're doing in KubeCon Salt Lake City, how to use AI to actually stress test and check the networking configuration, right? Networking policies, which is kind of the very core thing you want in any Kubernetes environment, where if their network policy is not correctly, then you can have breach or you can have any security issues. So AI is there to say, hey, when you have a cluster, maybe you first want to test your network policy, then maybe you want to test container security. This is how you can test it. This is how you can incorporate this in the development life cycle, so your engineers kind of leverage that. So yeah, definitely, I think it's traditionally before using AI, we didn't know exactly what to choose. Now we can even use it to leverage, hey, what's the first priority of experiment we want to choose? So yeah.
That makes sense actually. And talking about challenges, so are there challenges in fine-tuning models for Kubernetes specific anomalies? And adding to that question, how do you see the accuracy and trust factor evolving in production environments?
Right, so definitely there are challenges with anomalies, right? For example, one of the use cases we had, when you evaluate SLOs or requests coming to the service, so oftentimes a lot of users, a lot of organizations exclude 400s, right? Because 400s is user errors. Now you don't really want your engineers to be alerted on user errors, but what if your backend engineer added a code to production that's actually accidentally doing user errors when it should be a backend error, for example? Then you're missing out all of it. So I think when you want to fine-tune models, so this is one of the cases for anomalies, maybe you can say, hey, let's fine-tune a model to say, hey, suddenly we have a pretty increase in some cohort, some kind of anomaly where right now maybe it does require us to check. So this is I think when you go about, you mentioned trust, right? When you go about these dynamic anomalies, when you go about trust, you want to basically cut down the correct cohorts you want to look at, right? Because if I look at the requests from all over the world and I'll cut it by location, maybe I'm missing something out. Maybe locations coming from the UK or getting more errors, and then I'm missing it out. So AI actually can also help there, where it says, hey, maybe designing or even model development, right? You're going up and look across past data, historical data, and say, hey, based on this historical data, here is the variance, and maybe you want to look at by location. Maybe you want to look at by API method. Maybe you want to look at So this is where it can provide very useful insights to actually, hey, now you should find your model, you should fine tune your model based on this, or you should do the cohorts based on that. And historical data is basically a key here. Yeah.
Right. And when we talk about AI, we talk about trust. So trust is critical when it comes to making system changes based on AI recommendations. So how do you think the industry can build trust in AI-driven chaos engineering?
Right. There's a very good question. I think this is key in order for chaos engineering to succeed. Basically, chaos engineering has been there for a lot of years, but it didn't actually attracted a lot of success, right? Like, even like people like Netflix that actually came out with chaos monkeys, everything, they published their papers, but chaos is not embedded in any organization. And the reason it's not embedded is because of trust, because people do not trust to run chaos in production systems.
Exactly.
And actually in a safe and good way to do it. Now, when I think about trust, I think about a few aspects. As a developer, I think if we make the AI model or the chaos experiment explain to the user, hey, this is the steps I am going to do, and this is the reason. So when you explain to the developer, to the user, it can gain their trust because, hey, now they understand what you're doing and you're not just applying it. This A. I think B, you want the decisions for the chaos or the AI powered chaos to be auditable. So, you want, like, if we made a decision, hey, let's inject latency to this pod to test the network. So if we inject latency to this pod to test the network, we want the model to explain, hey, sometimes when you inject latency, that's what happens, that's what we're testing. And then we audit, hey, I added latency at this point in time, so then we can go back. The other thing is like treat the experiments like we treat code, right? We want gradual rollout, we want gradual progression. So basically, if let's say you're running your experiments as GitOps, right? But then you make a change, then you can quickly roll back. Let's say you have an experiment CRD, right? As opposed to just a script that go and changes it, and nothing is auditable. You can understand. So when you control the versioning of the experiments, that also gives trust that you can roll back pretty fast. I think that's mainly everything. Make it auditable, explain the user so they can gain a trust, and treat it like code, like roll out it progressively. And I think the last thing would be in the documentation, like embed real world examples, like success stories, right? Like how people actually leverage it in production and actually benefited from this. So yeah.
Awesome. Just one last question. So at both these fields, AI and chaos engineering, so they continue to evolve. What do you think like the next 5 to 10 years will look like for both these fields?
Right. So I'm hopeful, coming from as well like reliability background and SRE positions, and I'm hopeful that we're gonna see more chaos embedded to the development lifecycle. So one of the things people are struggling to do, but it will be like an ideal way, is like when a developer, a new development team starting up a new microservice, right? And maybe in this stages of this new microservice coming up, we inject some chaos, and this microservice would not be able to come up if it's not being able to remediate from this chaos experiments, right? And this is where AI can be useful, because development teams do not necessarily know, even if the platform team injects the chaos there, they do not necessarily know how to remediate them or what's going to be the best way to handle it. And this oftentimes creates friction between development teams and platform teams in the organization. Now, if AI is going to be there to help, like, whether it's chat-based, whether it's like suggestion-based, whatever, this is one thing I hope to see in the next 5 years or 10 years. And then subsequently more adoption for chaos, right? Like if chaos is embedded there, I think litmus chaos provides chaos as CRDs, like, Kubernetes way to do it. So in an organization that, for example, manages their deployment with Helm charts, and the development with Helm charts, maybe you can sneak in, an experiment CRD to the Helm chart, and then, it will do it way. So, and obviously as AI continues to evolve, like the models can, suggest what kind of things you want to, you use chaos and remediate when you have a disaster, right? So like, because if it's enough that one time you're going to have production downtime, then, you're going to get a top level decision where chaos is not there anymore. It's not worth for us. So if AI is going to be there, and they're going to be good protection mechanisms, I think that's what can help, gearing up the chaos a little bit more. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for your insights, Lior. I do feel AI is going to play a very crucial role in enhancement of chaos engineering, as well as it's going to help in better adoption of chaos engineering in the industry. Thanks once again for your time. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.